Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck. And of course, that means some more Smart Talk Radio is in your future, and certainly this one, no exception. Very happy to have back on our microphones again, Dawn Wells. And we talked to Dawn earlier in the year, and as you know, Dawn Wells, a very, very talented actress. You have seen her on television for many, many years on Gilligan's Island, not only the actual shows themselves, but, of course, the reruns for many years that are still in syndication. And some of you have seen her on the stage, some of you in other media, but she has a brand new work, well, not brand new, but a very recently released work called A Guide to Life, What Would Mary Ann Do? And we are very happy to have her here. Dawn, how are you, my friend?
I'm just great, getting ready for all the big days, I guess, ahead.
Yes, indeed you are. I have just a question, and I didn't ask you this last time, but because how things have unfolded, do you feel like there are more demands on your time now than there were back when you were shooting the series?
Oh, I think so. I think so. Sometimes when you're shooting a series, you're just not available, period. But no, I think the fact that we're the longest-running show in the history of syndication, it's our 50th anniversary this year, 30 languages all over the world, never have been really off the air. So you've reached, 3 generations now. So that does increase the visibility, I guess.
What about, and again, you would, because the career has spanned the time period that it has, and you've seen lots of new technology come available, lots of ways for people to communicate with you, about you, or from you. What has that done, do you think, to keep sort of Mary Ann and Gilligan's Island alive and well and kicking?
Well, I think this Facebook is the thing that really does it, because I have found people that you don't remember that you knew years ago. The Facebook, I don't know, I'm about 200,000, I think, or 180,000, something like that. And a year ago, I only had 3,000. So I've been communicating through it, and it's very interesting. People will stop me in the street, oh, I'm your Facebook friend. That's really something, I think. Think how far we've come. The telephone was big enough,
yeah.
But this is instant. Everything is instant. It's one of the things I talk about in the book. It's also dangerous. It's also what goes out there stays out there. So you have to be a little bit more careful. And that's one of the reasons that I was talking about in the book, about kind of monitoring what Mary Ann, when we went on the island, they hadn't even invented birth control pills. So imagine if Mary Ann came back today, what would there be facing?
Yeah.
What would she be? What would be the challenges? And I think the fact that my character has grown in popularity, because I think that good girl, so to speak, is pretty hard to find today on TV.
You bring up a really interesting point. The show was pre many things. It was probably barely walking through a metal detector at an airport. Right about that time, maybe it happened with some of the hijackings, but pre that, pre 9/11, pre lots of things. How would, if you were to rewrite, if Mary Ann was rewritten today, what might be fundamentally different about her, and what do you think would be the same?
Well, I think she'd be pretty much the same, because I think she's the moral compass of the show. I think she was fair. I think she contributed. I think she worked hard if she needed to be. I think she was cheerful. I think all of those things spread for generations, I think. I think we've lost track of it. So one of the reasons when I started to write the book, I thought, what would she do? I kind of went through the back and forth. Would she be Sarah Palin, Hillary Clinton? Would she run for politics? Would she be a school teacher? Would she marry and have 10 kids? Kind of going back and forth with what she really would do, because she wasn't a dullard. She didn't just sit around doing nothing. I think she'd have been a leader of some sort, not necessarily big time, but I think what she stood for, I think, is something that is timeless, and it crosses all languages and all generations.
The last time we talked, one thing you said I thought was telling was that Mary Ann was easy for you because you felt like not only you identified with her, but there was so much of you in that character, and it came fairly easy. If that is still the case, how much of the What Would Mary Ann Do book is Dawn Wells, and how much of it is Mary Ann?
Boy, I think it's pretty well intertwined, because I was raised a Mary Ann, and I was... I was raised in Mary Ann, in Reno, Nevada, with divorce and legal prostitution and gambling, and yet my mother had the codes of ethics and manners and etiquette and all of those things that I was raised with. So I think that that is who I am.
And you were, if I remember right, you were educated at a Midwestern, good old solid Midwestern school, correct?
Right. I went to Stevens, all women, and then I went to University of Washington.
Right.
So, I think the values that you learn at home are the values that carry with you if you're, if the family is intact enough that you are taught values.
What was it always? At what point did you realize that, you know what, I need to put a lot of these thoughts, a lot of these observations down in a book?
I tell you, and I think it happened about 2 years ago. And what really started it with me are the fans. And you have these big Comic-Cons and things where you meet hundreds of fans. And it's the 40-year-old, that I raised. It's the kid that came home from school and didn't have any friends. It's the misfit. It's the family that watched it together. It's all of that. And the fathers say to me, I married a Marianne. I married a Marianne. I would have dated Ginger, but I married a Marianne. And that's gone through, I'd say, the last 10 years very strong. And the need of being able to communicate that to their children, which is very interesting to me, because now they watch it together. It holds true. The show is silly, but, I mean, people surf on and surf off and don't know where they are. But there were 7 misfits trying to get along. Now how many continents are trying to get along? It's just magnified, sort of, and I think it's an escape. I think we need to go back to that kindness and that, we didn't bully Gilligan. He's the one that got us there. And, even though the Howells were wealthy and all of that, they shared. So I think that the interaction with the fans has really made me think, there is something to this character that has sustained.
Is there a particular subject in the work, in your new book, that is particularly close to you? Are there any subjects that are more difficult for you to write about for one reason or another?
Well, I think the difficulty thing is hooking up. My generation didn't hook up. And how do you moderate that? I mean, as a parent and as a person, and it's just sort of meaningless sex, that doesn't mean anything. So how do you analyze that? That was a difficult thing for me to do because I don't have children, and I'm not a therapist. So I'm only going with my gut level what I would do if I were a parent, and I think it's changed so much, and yet. I went to my college. I went back to Stevens and talked to the girls. It's all women. I said, okay, what do you think? Would Marianne sustain today? Are there any Mariannes today? And I limited it down to just 2 girls at the end. And one girl said, not a chance. Marianne wouldn't make it today at all. She's too kind. She's not strong enough. She's not combative, and that's what you need to be. And the other little girl just looked at me and she said, well, of course, there's just way too many Gingers. And I went, that's really it. It is all the Kardashians and the $500 purses and what am I going to wear and all that. That's what's sort of taken over, and I thought there is a message here. You can still do that, you can still wonder what to wear and do all those things, but you don't bully each other. You have manners still. You finish the job when you start it, There was an article or television or whatever it was 2 or 3 years ago where they interviewed some of the top successful people in the country and what was their turning point in their life or where did they get that ambition or whatever. And I recall one man saying, my mother, and he said I was about 5, and he said she was doing the dishes, and I wanted a glass of milk. And she said, well, you can get it yourself. So I opened the refrigerator and got the glass of milk and spilled the milk all over the floor. And my mother's reaction was, oh, look what you did. Well, if you're going to have to clean it up anyway, you may as well play in it. And that really stuck to me, and instead it stuck to him, because, yes, he did have to clean it up, but there was no yelling and screaming and clean it up now. He said, I piddled around in it a little bit, I slapped it around, and I don't know what you do as a little kid playing with milk on the floor. But that stuck with him about how he handles everything. Play around in it a little bit before you make a decision. Think about it a little bit. Don't just jump at everything. And I think everything is so instant today. I don't know what kind of a mother I would be. It's easy to say. But you've got families that are mixed now, stepkids and different ages, and both parents have to work, and and you've got the cell phones and things that you're worried about, the technology. So it's harder. But I think if the values are there, it's easy to say no to a lot of things.
Yeah. If you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio, in the middle of a nice segment with Dawn Wells, who for many years portrayed Marianne on Gilligan's Island. We know that. You have seen her over and over and over and over again.
And over again.
And some of you have seen her on the stage. Some of you have seen her in other media as well. But a brand new work, or not a brand new work, but one released recently called What Would Marianne Do? It's sort of a guide to life, and a very lovingly written and thoughtfully written on a variety of subjects. Dawn, I'm curious, as you look around the media landscape on television or maybe even in the movies, is there a character or has there been a character recently that is the new age Marianne that you see?
Gosh, I don't know. I was thinking about that because Two Broke Girls and Charlie Sheen and Two and a Half Men with the women coming in and out. I don't know that I have found a show that has those values. I don't watch television a lot, and I don't know what young people are really watching except the instant stuff. The concerts and the TMZs and all that kind of stuff. What are the programs? What are the top 10 programs now? I don't know.
Right.
What's number one? Do you know what's number one?
Not this week. I don't, and I would think the fragmentation too between what the series that are being shown on HBO and Cinemax and Stars and all of those are an AMC. Whether it's Mad Men or it's who knows what, Homeland.
Orange is the New Black is another one. Wow.
Yes, there you go.
I mean, it's whoa. You go whoa, and yeah, and there's semi-nudity. So that's the world today. So you're not going to lock your kid up and shut the door. It has to be dealt with and talked about, I think.
I'm sure you have done this, but is there any over the years? Was there a particular TV series or a particular TV character you thought, wow, I would have been perfect for that?
Oh, several.
Okay.
Yes. Why didn't I get that part?
well, maybe. Okay. Well, you don't need to tell us the ones you auditioned for, but
that's right. But I don't kind of remember, But you had That Girl, and you had I Dream of Jeannie, and you had the Monkees, and all of that stuff was my generation.
Right.
But when I auditioned for Marianne, there were I don't know how many 150 Mariannes out there.
Right.
So I don't know. I always wanted to play a bad girl. I always wanted to play the BITCH or the hooker or something like that to show you that I could do something else.
Well, and
I have done that on stage.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that on film.
Well, I was kind of heading in that direction. I'm wondering, what about playing a bad girl, for example, on the original show Dallas, as an example? Would that have been something that would have been intriguing for you?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Shooting JR.
Shooting JR would have been really good. No.
Well, you mentioned the stage, and I would like to touch on that just a little bit. We talked a little bit about it the last time, about a year ago or so, but tell us a little bit about your stage experience and overall, how'd that feel compared to being in front of a television camera?
Well, see, you never knew in front of the television camera what difference you're making to an audience or what their response is, except from fan mail. You know instantly whether the audience is with you or not. You know instantly if you're cutting it or not. You don't have a chance to retake. You know instantly the group that you're working with if there's a chemistry. And I can remember dinner theater was a big deal. And there were theaters all over. People said, why are you doing that? I said, because somebody who really doesn't want to go to the theater will come to a dinner theater. They'll have a drink or they'll have dinner and they'll watch a musical maybe. But you will now then, if they've enjoyed themselves and experienced that live stage for the first time, you've now made a theater goer out of them. Then they'll go see Lion in Winter, or they'll go see something more. So it's no different than doing a sitcom, really, is going out to that dinner theater stuff. And I really, really, really broadened my base by doing that. I mean, the first thing I did was Al and the Pussycat, which was a hooker, although I played her very sweet and nice. But, and I think that actually I grew as an actress doing that rather than staying in Los Angeles and playing that Marianne character for another 10 years.
What about, it's interesting you say that you do not have that audience reaction. When you were filming the pilot and filming early episodes prior to them airing of Gilligan's Island, as you were on that set, did you think this is going to be a monster? Or did you think, as you said earlier in this interview, this is silly? What did you think?
This is silly, kind of. And Sherwood Schwartz said, don't expect any reruns. It took him so long to get it sold, and they all thought it was the stupidest show ever written, and how would anybody even know you're on an island every week, until they showed the sample audience. And the sample audience came in, and it was the highest-rated show that they'd ever shown anybody. So they decided to put it on the air. But the executives thought it was just dumb. How this is a stupidest thing they ever heard. Well, no more different than the Beverly Hillbillies coming in. You know, it was all a fantasy, sort of, but it was pretty far-fetched. But yet he had a message, you know? I mean, every episode was a message of some sort, even though it was stupid, you know, that somebody came from outer space or somebody for some Russian astronauts. But that's fantasy anyway. Half a film is fantasy anyhow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sort of enjoying jumping back and forth between the book and your acting career. But there's a piece in the book, a title that says "A Moral Compass That Points in All Directions," which I think is really interesting. Would you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, it means, you know, there isn't just a moral compass. It isn't just black and white. It's everywhere. I mean, it's language now on television. It's a poster on a bus of a topless person that you can't really monitor what your kids are doing. So the compass is going everywhere. It's back and forth with good, bad, different languages, interracial marriages. Everything now has expanded. Birth control was not at all invented when we went there. So that was a difference. You know, that generation, people were afraid to get pregnant. That's where this hooking up didn't count, because everybody was terrified of getting pregnant. Now nobody cares about that. I mean, there's a way of controlling that. So it's I don't know if you put it on the air today if it would go, or if you'd have to make it. Would the professor be lusting after one of us or not? Right. I don't know. I don't know what you would do with it today. I know that it's never been off the air, so there's an audience, but that's a young audience.
Right. The other thing, let's talk about the book. Russell Johnson did the introduction for you, and I know that you all had a very special relationship. Would you share with our Lewis at Large audience a little bit about that and why he was so special to you?
Well, of course, I guess if your audience remembers the show, we were And the Rest the first year.
Yes, you were.
We were And the Rest. Our building was And the Rest, so we became real close. We still send each other's cards saying "Love and the Rest." I think because we were thrown together for that reason, I think, and another reason, he had the funniest sense of humor, off stage, off screen. Russell was the funniest. You would think it would be Backus. Bob Denver was a lot of physical comedy. You know, it was his body that did everything. But Russell was very witty and very funny and very smart. So we really were the rest. We really were a team, the two of us. I often wondered if the show had continued on, if it had continued another 4 or 5 years, if you would have developed any relationships. I guess they didn't dare touch it.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, could that show have had a decent spin-off of some kind?
I would think you could.
Could we see Mary Ann's life back on dry land?
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be, who were we then? You know? What did we do then?
Right.
I mean, what would I have done?
What about the chapter called "I Can't Imagine a Life Without Dancing"? Talk to us about that. Well,
I think that's just a spirit. You know, it's your spirit, and I just can't imagine. I mean, I dance, of course, and music does that to me. But I think it's there's a light part of your life that you can't let go, and you shouldn't let go. Little things that please you, little things that excite you, little things. I mean, I love it when it rains. I love to see a rainbow. You know, you get jaded, and the responsibilities kind of take you back. And I think that I'm a very optimistic person. I'm not terrified of growing old. I don't have children or grandchildren that I'm concerned about. You know, my daughter's divorcing or the kid's in trouble, or I don't have any of that. I took care of my ex-husband for a while before he died. I took care of my mother till I lost her. So I've done the responsibilities. I understand that. But my life is blessed. I have good health, and I love what I do, and I like people, and I look forward to the next project. So I'm not a Pollyanna by any means, but I'm happy to be here. And when you have a little discord, we were picked up for the 4th season. I lost my father, got a divorce, and the series was canceled all the same month. That was a big one. But, yeah. You know, it can knock you down or it can make you stronger. And I think my mother raised a good girl. That's all.
I remember a story you shared. See if I've got this right. You were traveling back to school with your boyfriend who played ball at USC or UCLA, and your mother was kind of against it, but she finally relented, and then they had the cops stop you guys, maybe?
Yeah, we were driving. I was driving my senior year in college, which means I was 20. My college sweetheart lived in Pomona. He was a football player for the University of Washington, and he was going to pick me up in Reno and drive me to Seattle. My mother didn't like the idea of me being in a car with a boy for 12 hours, but she said, okay. And my head's against the window. I'm asleep, and the highway patrol pulls us over someplace in Oregon. And I woke up. I said, "Al, are you speeding?" He said, "I don't think so." The policeman came to the window, and he rolled down the window. He said, "Is there a Dawn Wells in the car? Call your mother."
Oh.
Now, that's a good one, but I'm going to top it. I was 60. I'm an adventuresome person. My knee's dislocated, and I can't do sports. But I've climbed the mountains in Rwanda for the gorillas, and 5 of my Stevens friends went to the Solomon Islands, where no white women have ever been before, canoeing up to island to island to island. As a matter of fact, when the chief's wife said, "I know you," no running water, no electricity. She'd gone to nursing school in Honiara and seen me in black and white. But as I'm coming home, now I've been there 5 weeks, and it's pretty, no communication with my mother. And I'm walking down the airport in Sydney, getting ready to go to my gate, and a pilot comes towards me, and he said, "Aren't you Marianne from Gilligan's Island?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Your mother's been looking for you all day." And all I can think of is, she calling the tower? Who's she calling to be able to ask a pilot where I was? So I don't know. Today, I don't know. My cell phone would have been wired to her ear, I guess. I don't know how she would have done it today. But she knew where I was. And why didn't I run away, or why didn't I sneak out? Because there was respect.
Yeah.
I respected her somehow. I mean, I didn't like that very much, but still.
She showed you the lines between what's appropriate and what's not.
Exactly.
As we start to wind down here a little bit, if I remember right, you were headed towards possibly a career in medicine.
Yep.
And situation led you to Los Angeles and the part and all that. You were not dead set on being a world famous actress, at least at the time. And I'm curious as to the young people that you see, young females in particular that you see arriving in Southern California, willing to wait tables till they get their big break. What mistakes do they make, and what, not sort of, I guess, what advice would you give them, but maybe more, how is it maybe different than your experience?
Well, let's let's just start from the beginning. I didn't have a desire to be famous. I didn't have a desire to be an actress. I took acting because I couldn't take PE, and I was pretty good at it. My professor encouraged me to, and I said, "A major in theater? Are you kidding?" Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to major in theater, minor in medicine until I see if I'm going to work. And when I graduated, it was a question of New York or L.A. That was it. Most of the stuff in New York was musical comedy. I don't sing. And so I said, I'll give myself 2 years. And if I'm not working in 2 years, I'm going back to med school. And one of the things, I ran a film actors boot camp for quite a while. And what I was teaching them, I'm not teaching you how to act. You think you know how to do that. How to get the job. Getting the job is the hard part. And I was a perfect type, a perfect ingenue. I couldn't have played Ginger. She couldn't have played Marianne. When you walk through a door, when I cast the movie of the week where I did for Gilligan's Island and had people audition, I was fascinated to see people coming in because I was on the other side, watching them. You know the minute somebody walks in the door if they're physically right, and then when they open their mouth, you probably know in the first 3 minutes whether they're right for the role. Because film goes right in behind your eyes. You can't fool it very much, unless you're playing a witch or something like that in costume. I think the real you kind of comes through.
Okay, you do radio pretty easily. You've been on television, stage. Now you're an author, and you're doing book tours, and you're good. Gosh, how many live speaking engagements you have? Is there any desire still in Dawn Wells to go back and be on television again?
Oh yeah, I'd love to do something like Hot in Cleveland or something. I'd love to do a comedy with an audience. A sitcom with an audience. I wouldn't mind doing a dramatic show as well. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like you're talking about House of Cards and that kind of stuff, there's really meat there now. It's not trivial.
Right.
But yeah, of course. What
about the stage? Is the stage still fun, or is that too much time and too much commitment? Tell us about that.
Well, it's fun. I did A Lion in Winter, which was quite a challenge, and I've done Love, Loss, and What I Wore, and several things lately. It's harder, I think. It's harder because it's more tiring. It's 8 performances a week, and it locks you up to everything else. You can't really do anything else. There's nothing better than a beautiful script and an audience reacting. But that would be wonderful to have a sitcom or something with the audience reacting on camera. I just love it. I love it. It's not my soul. I mean, it isn't the only thing I want to do, but I love doing it. So I hope to do it till I'm Katharine Hepburn's age, and she still was doing it,
Okay. What about, last question here, and I appreciate your time, and that is, you travel. You're involved in lots and lots of projects. What does Dawn Wells do for recreation or to relax? What's fun for you?
Well, I like to read. I really like to read. I like television because there's a lot of really good stuff. I'm a great fly fisherman.
Really? Wonderful.
Yeah, I produced a fly fishing show all over the world with a Canadian fly fishing champion with 2 women. We went to Iceland and Scotland and Mexico, and it was just wonderful. I like to do that. I've just been warned that I'm about to run away.
Got it.
I'm late for an audition, and I didn't realize it, but that's all right because I'm enduring you, so I'll wind it up. But I like Friends. I like to play poker. I like to cook. I love to have parties at my house, not big parties, but intimate parties. So that's kind of who I am today.
And a couple hours a day you get to sleep, so good for you.
And that's not as easy as it used to be, is it?
Yeah, this wonderful woman, Dawn Wells, a brand new work called A Guide to Life, What Would Mary Ann Do?, filled with all kind of anecdotes and observations, and it's a great
Christmas gift. You know, it's great to take and read to your grandchild or read with a family or something. I'm very proud of it, and I appreciate you helping me promote it.
How can we quickly, where can people go to find it and find out more
information? You can go to my website, dawnwells.com, and I'll personalize it for you if you like. And you can go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and your local bookstore, I would think.
Okay. Have a wonderful 2015. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed talking to you. Have a great holiday.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.